Okay, I'm here with James Freeman. He is the founder and CEO of Blue Bottle Coffee, and he's also a keynote speaker at VatorSplash Oakland. James, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And I forgot to say that we are in your Oakland-based headquarters, and you started here, what, 10 years ago?
Not in this very headquarters, but we started in Oakland, roasting at the 51st and Telegraph, behind the restaurant Doña Tomas in 2002.
Well, you're one of the Oakland pioneers because now it's really emerging with a lot of startups, and so you've being here for 10 years, you're sort of a veteran.
I'm not a startup anymore.
You're not a startup anymore, but you led the way. So tell me how you got started.
Well, I was super burnt out on what I used to do, and I just couldn't face doing it anymore. And I used to roast coffee at home on a perforated baking sheet in my oven, and I loved that. And
How did you learn to do that?
There's some article I came across in a magazine, and you know, perforated baking sheet is very easy, and I tracked down a broker of green coffee that I could drive to their warehouse and get little 1-pound bags of coffee. And so I started doing that in my house in the late 90s, and I loved it. It was incredible, and it was so interesting. At that time, there was literally nowhere you could go in San Francisco that you could get a bag of coffee beans and know when they were roasted. And I thought that was kind of tragic because it was so important to me when I was doing my roasting. It would taste very different day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. And so,
wow.
And I was baffled why I couldn't get that kind of coffee that I wanted. And so that became my little wacky plan B, that I don't have any business background, but I understood the commerce of the marketplace in the farmer's market, because that I would shop at the farmer's market, and I could understand, like, you make a thing and then you could bring it to market and somebody comes and they give you some money and you give them that thing you made. Repeat.
So you started doing the farmer's market.
Yeah. The first farmer's market I did was Old Oakland Farmer's Market, which is not very far from here. That was August 15th, 2002. Paid $120. And then I got into Berkeley Farmer's Market and Tuesday, and then Berkeley Saturday, and then I got into the Fair Building Farmer's Market on Saturday.
And the rest is history. Did it seem like you were taking a big risk, leaving?
Well, I don't know. In retrospect, I think it did. I didn't have sort of much of a career that was sort of high-paying or lucrative in other senses, so it didn't seem hard to leave this thing that I had been doing my whole life, and it was making me crazy instead of making me happy.
Did you take outside investing at all, or
No,
to start it?
I didn't even know. Ignorance is bliss. I didn't know there were outside investors. I started Blue Bottle I had 2 credit cards, and I had, maybe $15,000 in a savings account. And the nice thing to know, like, when it's only your own money, and you don't realize it's possible to spend more than you have, then you don't spend more than you have. So I spent what I had. I thought over every little penny.
And then you were already making revenue because you were selling it at the farmer's market.
Yeah, and then it just sort of went from there.
Why did you choose Oakland?
At the time, because I lived there, I liked Oakland. I liked that it was cheaper to start a business there in San Francisco, that's for sure. It just seemed like there were more places to do something kind of on the cheap, and I liked the weather. I liked sort of the customer base, the people. I liked that people did more tangible things, it seemed, in Oakland.
And you're in Jacqueline Market, which is, you have to admit, one of the nicest spots in Oakland.
I feel like our roastery is in the fruit and vegetable warehouse district near Jacqueline Square. I don't think we're in Jacqueline Square. There's a palpable and distinct change when you cross the train tracks, I feel like.
Oh, okay. Well, close by.
Close by, undeniably close by.
There are a lot of people, and it's spreading this way too. There are a lot of people considering starting their company in Oakland. What do you think? Is it a good place for entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Well, it's you can get nice spaces. There's a lot more space. San Francisco is 49 square miles, and there's just not very much of it. So you can start your business more economically. more economically. You can.
What's the square footage like with the price?
Oh, I don't know. I don't shop for office space very much
Anymore? Okay,
I
because
think
you
it's
have
a lot. You know,
a lot cheaper than San
yeah,
Francisco.
there are bargains to be had, and there's interesting infrastructure. You know, BART is very helpful.
The ferry.
The ferry, that's the world's most beautiful commute. You know, I take the ferry every once in a while from the ferry building to here.
What about safety issues?
Well, sometimes there are safety issues. We had a gentleman, I think he was at a coffee bar customer, he got his coffee and two guys behind him got coffees, and then they followed him out and they tried to mug him,
Oh no.
and he threw the hot latte in their faces and ran off.
Wow.
So, I mean, there have been issues down here,
Yeah,
you know, but there's issues in San Francisco too.
sure. But it seems to be getting better. It feels safer, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the statistics are. People come
Right.
to Oakland that aren't used to it. It's like, I'm gonna die, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's a stereotype about Oakland that I don't know if statistics will bear that out.
It's changed a lot in the last 5 years, right?
Oh yeah,
How has it changed?
yeah. It's busier where we are at the roastery. There's people coming from every direction. I don't know where they come from, but there seems to be a lot more of them. A lot more people are living down here in this general area. Housing, I mean, it's so hard to build anything in San Francisco. Just the city of Oakland is not the easiest to get permits approved and everything, but it's a little more possible than in San Francisco.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about Blue Bottle. I don't want to take away any of your thunder when you get on stage with Tony Conrad of True Ventures, but
Tony will bring plenty of thunder.
I'm sure. But I did want to, you just raised almost $26 million. So altogether, is it about $50 million? How much have you raised in total?
Not so much, yeah. Give or take.
About give or take, starting from going from one farmer's market to the other. I love that story. It's just
Crazy.
great.
I never expected that from the farmer's market.
Did you ever think 10 years ago at one farmer's market that you'd be sitting here talking about how you're raising 50
Corner
million?
office.
So where are you going? I guess I read that you want to open up a lot more cafes. How
More
many?
Cafes? I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well then, what are you going to do with what's the growth? How are you going to grow your company over the next few years?
I like opening shops. I like spending time and thinking about creating a beautiful space where people want to come and that we can make delicious coffee for them. A lot of coffee roasting companies are primarily wholesale based. The vast majority of their revenue comes from wholesale, and if they have a few shops, they're more or less like brochures for their wholesale program.
Yep.
But most of our revenue comes from our retail locations that are 100% owned by us and our web store. So I like that idea of being totally responsible for our own coffee. Nobody's going to love your coffee more than we do.
So you don't sell
We
Blue
do.
Bottle
It's
coffee?
just we sell to, we have very nice wholesale accounts, the Ritz-Carlton and Lake Tahoe
Okay.
and the Soho House and some very nice wholesale accounts. It's just a smaller part of our business. It's not the main part.
So the retail is where you make the bulk of
Yeah,
your
that's where
profit.
I personally have the most interest, and that's it's harder, it's more capital intensive. You have to hire your own people, and there are challenges.
But you like that.
But I like that. Yeah.
How many cafes do you have now?
12.
You have 12 around the country.
Yeah, 6 in the Bay Area, 6 in the New York area.
Where are you expanding to?
Los Angeles.
Okay.
We're going to open a shop in
That's very authentic.
that's
Jack
authentic
London market.
Amtrak
Yeah.
soundtrack. We're going to open in Los Angeles. Have a shop in Venice, Abbot-Kinney, coming in the summer-ish, and then maybe in winter, Culver City. We're this far away from finding a roastery in LA.
Okay. So you find roasteries, like existing roasteries, and then you change them?
Or we build our own.
Change them up. Okay. Or you build your own. Okay. Got
That's
it.
kind of our-
And so it sounds like LA in 2014. Anywhere else?
Yeah, I like Japan a lot. It'd be
Okay.
fun to open in Tokyo.
Are you overseas at all, or? No,
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Is that in 2014 or 2015?
Maybe 2014.
Okay. So tell me about the design of your stores. I mean, you have this, I mean, Apple has just such a pristine and clean and simple and elegant look, and that's what you're trying to do to some extent?
Yeah, I mean, I admire the Apple stores, and I want to learn from the Apple stores. Obviously, we sell coffee, they sell computers, so it's very different. Apple stores, I think, are more universally recognizable. I like reacting to the building and the block and the neighborhood. But I also love, I mean, what I love about the Apple store, it's not so much what's in an Apple store, but what's not in an Apple store that makes you feel a certain way. There's not like shelves. I mean, some of them are getting a little messier as you get towards the back with shelves and different bags, but they're very stripped down.
Yeah.
This idea of what you don't see being more important than what you do see is very important to us, and I think that very few retailers demonstrate it better than the Apple store. This idea of hidden infrastructure, making the things that the infrastructure is supporting seem more magical.
Yep.
I love that. So there's a lot to learn from me.
But I like when you said that you also like to keep it true to the existing, local context.
Yeah, I mean, to react to the architecture and the neighborhood makes a space seem more natural, makes it feel more natural. People don't, and once again, it's not necessarily something people notice,
Right.
but they would notice if it wasn't there.
Yeah. So you're venture backed, so that means you've got big ideas. You have 12, 15
that means somebody
stores.
thinks I have big ideas.
Are we, so, you're looking to just open up retail store. I mean, how does this get huge, be a big venture-backed business? By multiple retail shops?
I think there's a lot of opportunities in retail. There's a certain point, you can only open so many before you open too many and they start to sell.
Right, but how many does Starbucks have?
Maybe 19,000.
Okay, all right. Over, I don't know how many years it took them to build that out,
Yeah.
but, okay. But you got a long way to go, 15.
If you buy a black coffee at Starbucks, some people will drip a little coffee into the condiment tray so they have room for cream.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine 19,000 Starbucks, all that, those little drips, that's probably the total of all the coffee we make.
Total of all the coffee that
we make in a day is how much people at Starbucks
yeah, that's funny. Right, they do that. I don't know why they continually fill it all the way up to the top. That's just a waste of coffee. But no, I know you're doing a very, you're just starting. So, but is that sort of, is that the goal? Having,
the goal is not 19,000 shops. The goal is to open enough shops such that we can get better and better every year.
Okay.
And that sort of our coffee is probably more delicious every year, and that our hospitality is more skilled and warmer every year. So the goal is to improve.
And then your coffee is, the thing about your coffee is that it's fresh. That's what you sell, right? You can buy, so all the beans that you buy from your shops, your cafes, those are all freshly ground beans? Or
they're not ground.
Or whole beans?
But they're roasted within 48 hours of us putting them into our customer's hand.
What happens when they're after 2 days?
Well, there's an arc. Because our packaging is compostable, we don't have a heat sealer, so we can't lock in freshness. There's a certain skepticism that some people have, myself included, about whether you can lock in freshness at all. But there's an arc. Coffee beans get better and better after they're roasted, and then they start trailing away. And depending on the varietal and the roast level, that arc is a peak of flavor anywhere from 5 to 12 days after roasting. So our goal is to let the customers participate in that arc
and choose
rather than have that arc languish on a shelf and then somebody buys it after its best days are behind it.
Okay, so then it looks like it's more than 2 days that you had to be on the shelf.
No, we give it to you within 2 days and then let you experience the best part of that coffee.
Oh, I see. So it's, as opposed to what would a typical roaster do? Just
I don't know.
Get it out there anytime. You wouldn't know.
And you buy it,
Okay, so it could be like there for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it's way past the.
Yeah.
Okay.
We put a roast date on every bag, so it's easy to.
So people know what they're buying. Great. Okay. And the majority of your business comes from retail, like we
Yes.
said. And are there any other revenue streams coming?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. We just launched a ready to drink in a little carton.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had our New Orleans stylized coffee?
No.
It's really delicious. It's coffee cold steeped with a little bit of chicory in the New Orleans style, and then we add a little milk, and it's slightly sweet.
Okay.
We serve buckets of it in our shops, especially on the East Coast in August, but it's a steady seller in all of our shops.
Yep.
And so finally, after many years of labor and a lot of checks, we finally have an adorable little carton. Wish I could show it to you, but I don't have one. And we launched it at this huge, crazy food show called NET, the Natural Food Expo
Nice.
in Anaheim, California. That was last weekend.
Yeah.
So that's how I spent my weekend, was pouring little samples of that to people.
Well,
So that is actually amazing because there's no instructions, there's no training. You open it and you drink it, and it's really delicious. And it's got the same 4 organically certified ingredients that we use in our shops.
well, congratulations. I'm going to have to
Thank
try
you.
that. Okay, well, this is going to be running as long as your fireside keynote, so I think I'm going to end it here.
Super.
16 minutes. James, thank you very much. And we will see you in May on stage at Splash Oakland.
I'll be there.